Well, so Mississippi is having Confederate Memorial Day today, and which means, ladies and gentlemen, that in many of the offices, county offices, there won't be any business taking place, with the exception of the governor's office, of course. Phil Bryant's office did not shut down for Confederate Memorial Day. Harrison County shut down. Check and see if Hinds County shut down. I'm very disappointed in the supervisors at Harrison County. At the very least, someone needs to put forward a resolution indicating that you won't shut down. You do understand that it is optional in this state. It is one of the holidays that counties can observe or not. It's very disappointing for me each time. Now, folks, I'm going to say this, and I'm not saying it to brag or take credit. I'm just saying it because it's true. My relationship, should I say, with all things that are Confederate goes back to 1970. Well, 1970. It was in 1970, ladies and gentlemen, when I played football for Gulfport East, that me and others realized that the Confederate battle flag did not represent, or anything Confederate never represented African Americans. Now look, I'm not going to give you a long drawn out story, but the truth is a lie. So yours truly, along with Purvis McBride, Shed Foxworth, I think James Foxworth was there too, Ronnie Grosvenor, seems like there was someone else too. Ronnie Grosvenor, maybe that was it. And if you guys are listening, call me and correct me. We all opted to sit down when Dixie was played, and they, meaning the Gulfport East Vikings, were waving the Confederate battle flag. You see, they would always play Dixie, and then here we are, the Vikings, and all the football players would stand up during the pep rally. And we decided we were not going to do that. I want you to know the principal at that time was all good. He was the principal. Coach Tucker was the head coach. Now, prior to this, let me give you a little more history. Prior to this, ladies and gentlemen, you realize it was happening. I think Coley Crutcher was there. I wasn't there in the school when Coley was there and playing for Gulfport East. And it was just kind of a staple. I guess they did it at Ole Miss. They did it at Gulfport High. I guess in every high school, I guess it was customary during segregation that's what you did. You played Dixie and you stood up. That was their heritage, you see. Well, I came from 33rd, and I still bleed green and gold now. And we just weren't having it. So they stood up. We sit down. You see, all the team was standing up, and they're giving the rah-rah session, and all of a sudden they'd go into that, well, a nice rendition of Dixie, and we sit our behinds down. Now here is where you really need to grasp the concept of the Confederacy. This whole idea when they say that it's all about their heritage. Now listen to me closely. They were standing. We all were standing. Dixie came on, we sit down. About 8 of us, 6 or 7 of us. But don't get me wrong. We were we were 6 or 7 of the first string kick butt kind of guys. I mean, you know, they really did realize that. So we sit down. And then the members, the African American members in the black section, by the way, it was considered that, in quotes, not because it was designated. It's just that, you know, there's integration, and you know, it's relationships, and you know, and it was cool to sit over there with the brothers. I mean, you know. So some of them in the audience also sat down. Okay, so the pep rally's over, and then the football players then are asked to go and talked to the office. Lutilli Stephanie was our African-American coach representative who, by the way, was a little surprised by it, but at the same token, very supportive. Oh, Coach Tucker, Coach Gunlock, and all these folks all up in arms. Oh, what was the problem? Now listen very closely to what they said. Why did you sit down? It didn't represent us. It didn't represent us. That is not, that what we're singing, what y'all are singing, that flag you're waving was contrary to us. My ancestors didn't fight for no damn Confederacy. And by the way, they did win. I mean, all of us are pretty bright individuals going through government, you know, from 9th grade. American history, I had Mr. Cromwell, who was an incredible history teacher, by the way, a former veteran and a Caucasian guy, and I revere him. I mean, he helped us put together a syllabus of African American history. All of this happened. Now, trust me, just check with Judy, and she'll tell you that, Judy Barker. So they were upset, ladies and gentlemen, because we sat down on the damn song. Because we did not revere what they revered. Just think about it. It didn't matter that they were happy about it. It mattered more that we were not. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the tenement of the heritage of the Confederacy. It is the forcing of people to be enslaved to what they want. You got me? In other words, it was, oh, how could you do this? Well, if your heritage is that important, what does it matter that I sit down on it? I mean, I bury my dead. I mean, when we sing the Battle Hymn of Republican First Missionary Baptist Church, let me just tell you, my heart throbs. You know what I mean? So the next pep rally came along. And because God, the principal Allgood took such a strong stance, well, we just can't have this, Daniels, and blah, 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 blah. This is 1970. We can't have this, and you know what? We said very little to them. Didn't matter what they said to us, Ro. It was more what we thought and what we knew we were going to do. Next game came around. Pep rally, played the song. We sat down again. Now the entire quote-unquote black section sat down. Now before that, there was a little skirmish in the stands there that preceded this with Maurice Lombard, and where the guy comes up behind the Negroes in the black section and want to wave the flag. Well, that didn't last long. Mitchie Reeves was his name, and by the way, he became a police officer. Didn't last very long. This is very real stuff, I'm telling you now. This is going back to 1970. My history with this in the Confederacy, actually, it actually happened before that. It was around 1968. But that's another story. So, we walked out, and we just simply said, we're not going to play. I don't just have to play football for gut 40s. I ain't no Viking. I mean, there were things that's important to you and you're passionate about. And so, therefore, Allgood and Coach Tucker, and then Coach Bishop was the vice president, the assistant principal. Ooh, and what are we going to do? What are we going to do? We got the game between Biloxi coming up, and Daniels is playing strong safety and monster man, and we don't have any replacement for Purvis, who's also playing wingback and defensive safety. Jed Foxworth is running, it's playing tackle. We can't win without these Negroes. True story. They stopped playing Dixie, and they stopped waving that damn flag. True story. Small victory. However, they had to do a tit for tat. Since we're not going to play Dixie, then we're not going to play Jericho for you. Really?
Wow.
Jericho?
Really?
Yeah, really. We're not going to play Jericho for you. That is the lunacy of those individuals who support this lost cause and this white supremacist myth, make-up, bull. But it's not important for them. You see, that's what Mississippi's all about. It's not important that their heritage. It's important that they force it on you. This is what this whole Confederate battle flag crap is all about. And all day, that's what this day is all about. It's about Confederate Memorial Day. Memorial Day in its inception, ladies and gentlemen, was basically born out of the idea that men lost their lives on the battlefield. Period. Be it Shiloh, be it Corinth, be it you. And so, they went out and horrible carnage that happened during the Civil War. Such blood and such death that, they couldn't figure out which body was which. In some cases, there were mass graves. So they put flowers out on the graves. That was it. Memorial Day. That was it. Wasn't enough. Wasn't enough for the bigots who came after, ladies and gentlemen, Reconstruction, and especially those who came after the Mississippi statutes of 1972. Actually started in the 40s, but 1972. It was reiterated. That whole timeline when you came up with building statutes to show that the Mississippi's back, the Confederates are back, we're back in control. I'm going to say this to you. There's absolutely, positively nothing united about anything Confederate. Nothing. The single most recognizable symbol of a divided country, or divided United States, is the Confederate battle flag. The single most recognizable symbol of white supremacy and genocide is the Confederate battle flag. I don't care when you get it. I don't care what you say, what your granddaddy says. That's what he fought for. You see, this is born out of submission. For those of you who don't get this, I know that there are those of you who have granddads, as do I, by the way, who probably fought for the Confederacy. I'm narrowing it down now. The ancestor that I had, who was the father of Melinda Benton, was there in Kentucky, and her father/owner sent her to Memphis after the Civil War, and I've not yet got his name, but we're going to get that, I assure you. All of this is born out of not the Confederacy per se. It is the philosophy of making sure that everyone stands up, especially Negroes. I'm just telling you. Which is why they were so upset. Well, how dare you? How dare you sit down? You can't do that on me. When I took down the Confederate battle flag there, and how could you do that? Easy. No problem for a son of a U.S. colored troop. We won. That's what happens. You win, you take the flag. Don't get me wrong. You're not going to see the flag of Benedict Arnold either. The battle regalia, that is. You just don't have it. You're not going to see the flag of Chief Joseph or the Sioux or the Navajo, sadly, in some cases. But what this whole Confederate thing is about is what Jeff Davis said, folks, the only president of the Confederacy. That's what this is about. We recognize the Negro as God, and God's book and God's laws in nature tell us to recognize him, our inferior, fitted expressly for servitude. You cannot transform the Negro into anything 1/10 as useful or as good as what slavery enables them to be. Jeff Davis said that. February 22nd, 1862. Did you hear that? This is the thought of those who were Confederate and / those individuals who to this day feel that it was such a glorious cause. And yet they died for what they believed in. And you just feel real great about it. It's okay, you can. Look, no problem. I'm not asking you to stand up for me, so why is it necessary for me to stand up for you? I'll tell you why. Because you can't transform the Negro into anything 1/10 as useful or as good as what slavery enables them to be. Folks, you can't make this up. You can't. And on this day, courthouses are closed in Mississippi. And then for those of you who feel that it's a glorious thing, and then those who are goose-stepping around Beauvoir and talking about, well, the commemoration of, and it wasn't about slavery. I'm going to send some information to all of the the alderman over there at New Orleans. The same thing over at Ocean Springs. Same thing I did for the alderman at Biloxi. Just so you won't get out here talking ignorant. Shay Dobson, you can't just be ignorant now and somehow feel that just because it's been the heritage to be ignorant that it's okay. I mean, your ignorance is by your choice, of course. So on this day we have Confederate History Memorial Day, so we shut down everything to memorialize those individuals who died in the Confederacy, which in itself, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, is discriminatory. You know why? Because there were no Negro Confederates in the state of Mississippi. And Greg Stewart and the rest of you guys, Payne, the rest of you guys, if you say that there was, and I want you to send me their induction papers where they were mustered in this state, where the Confederacy mustered in any black troops, I dare you. They try to come up with some kind of gravesite to say, oh, blacks fought the Confederacy. Just show me. And then just provide it. The Department of Archives and History will not show you not one iota of that there in Jackson, especially the new one. You want to know why the war was fought? Well, the war was fought because of what L.C.Q. Lamar wrote in the secession papers when such time that Mississippi decided to secede. Our position is thoroughly identified with the institution of slavery, the greatest material interest of the world. I'm reading it. Here it is right there. Its labor supplies the product which constitutes by far the largest and most important portions of commerce of the earth. These products are peculiar to the climate verging on the tropical regions. Now, products is actually people. And by an imperious law of nature, none but the black race can bear exposure to the tropical sun, because white boys are just too weak and can't handle it. They get sunburned and they die. Now, that's not part of it. End quote. It actually stopped with tropical sun, but guys, come on. Although there are those who seek to try to build themselves as being rednecks, you can't handle this. You certainly couldn't handle it then. You got to... Oh, I'm just saying. I'm reading what L.Q.C. Lamar wrote. Here it is. None but the black race can bear exposure to the tropical sun. These products have become necessities of the world, and a blow at slavery is a blow at commerce and civilization. The blow has been long aimed at the institution and was at the point of reaching its consummation. There was no choice left us but submission to the mandates of abolition or a dissolution of the Union, whose principles had been subverted to work out our ruin. Therefore, they went off to war. They were met by over 17,000 Mississippians who fought against them, U.S. colored troops. It's discriminatory, ladies and gentlemen, because those U.S. colored troops who fought right here in Mississippi for their freedom and won, there's no commemoration. Well, we'll reserve Memorial Day for them. So Memorial Day is for all the other soldiers to see. The Union soldiers, minus the Confederates, those who died during Vietnam, World War I, World War II. That's Memorial Day.
But the Confederates get their own?
Absolutely.
And they lost?
It has nothing to do whatsoever, ladies and gentlemen, actually with the deaths of those men. It has more to do with not letting Rip Daniels sit down. You got me? In other words, the Confederacy exists. In its purest existence, it is to force people to do things against their will. Don't you understand that's what this is? When Jeff Davis said that, that's why he referred to Negroes as products. You cannot transform the Negro into anything 1/10 as useful or as good as what slavery enables it to be. Talking about your granddaddy and your grandma. How could any man even begin to think that anything Confederate, particularly a man who's reasonable, who at the least loves these United States, find anything but contempt for that banner? I mean, you can't have it both ways. The fact that your daddy and your ancestors died for an inglorious cause. I mean, I got you. But you can't go around and goose step and act like somehow or another it was such an honorable thing. And you certainly can't expect for the rest of us to somehow look at that as being wonderful. Because you see, you got to understand, I'm glad your granddaddy died. And preferably, I would hope my granddaddy killed him. Had it not been that way, then there's a very great possibility you and I, my friend, would not be having this conversation, and we wouldn't certainly be in these United States. You cannot have it both ways. You cannot sit here and act like you're so patriotic and praise the United States and somehow or another revere the cause for which your ancestors died. Really? You got to be glad. I mean, I'm just saying. But it doesn't matter. And then there's the Constitution. I'm holding it right here. It's right here. Constitution, March 11th, 1861. A lot of those individuals, I'm sure Greg Stewart and the rest of them can't read this or don't read this. They never read anything that counteracts, I'm talking facts that counteract their position. They only read things that will support it. I sent this also out to all of the city council there in Biloxi, and I really appreciate the fact they read it too. The importation of Negro Africans was by Section 9, number 1, is forbidden. There are those that, well, the Confederacy forbade importation of Negroes. Oh, well, that's because they had breeding farms. Jeff Davis had a big one. Congress shall also have the power to prohibit the introduction of slaves from the state not a member of or territory not belonging in the Confederacy. But it just lays out here, I mean, point by point. I want to go to the bonus here. Oh, here it is. This is, let's see here, this is number 3, section 3, number 1. Okay, this is Article 5. Section number 2 covers all of it. The citizens of each shall have their right to their property, slaves. And it spells out that it's slaves. And it also spells out that it's Negro. It is not Caucasian slaves. Which made the Confederacy that peculiar institution. All of this was born out of complexion, ladies and gentlemen. Don't believe it? In all such territory, the institution of Negro slavery, it spells it out. Don't take my word for it. Just get your Constitution if you're a Confederate, boy. In all such territory, the institution of Negro slavery, as it now exists in the Confederate States, shall be recognized and protected by Congress and by the territorial government, and the inhabitants of the several Confederate States and territories shall have the right to take to such territory any slaves lawfully held by them in any of the states or territories of the Confederate States. And now we're closed. County courthouse is closed. And my great-great-granddaddy, who was there in Vicksburg, who absconded, slit his master's throat. His last name was Williams. My great-great-granddaddy was a knapsack carrier there. He slit his master's throat, got across the state line, and killed every Confederate he got his name on and get his hands on. And I'm going to tell you something. I'm so proud of that. I'll stand up. You want to stand up for it? I mean, you do realize standing up for my great-great-granddaddy is standing up for America, the United States. Understand? It's an insult. Alabama had their Confederate month last Monday? And by the way, if anybody want to take issue with, you do understand that Jeff Davis, the only president, most of his enslaved were under 12. Had about 50 of them, actually. Under 12-year-olds. I also provided them with the Jeff Davis own handwriting, whereby he penned those individuals who were enslaved by him. This from a man who said that you cannot transform the Negro into anything 1/10 as useful or as good as what slavery enables them to be. By the way, Mississippi is going to shut down for Jeff Davis' birthday, too. Was that June? Some Monday in June. One last thing, and then we're going to go on. Former First Lady. And no, don't play the song. This is pretty solemn here. Former First Lady Michelle Obama has ancestors right there in Corinth who fought in the U.S. colored troops. Caesar Cohen. We actually had two. One from Alabama and then one from Corinth. Both of Michelle Obama's ancestors were born enslaved. Jerry Sutter became Sutton. Would make his way to Corinth, Mississippi as contraband before enlisting into the U.S. colored troops. Corinth was home to 50,000, you heard me right, 50,000 former enslaved Americans who became considered as contraband. I didn't say refugees. Until such time that the United States government recognized them as being Americans. I'm sorry, people. So both of, she had, and by the way, she did a piece on this, I think, when she was, she and her husband were there in the White House. All right, okay, folks, let's get to it. A lot to cover, short period of time. And for those, here is the deal here. Let's see, where are we? Let's see. Yeah, there it is, right. Delbert Hostman signed it. Did Phil Bryant put this forward?
He put it forward, but I still have not seen his proclamation signed on his website anywhere.
Can I understand from the local paper that that he did, in fact, his office is actually open today. I guess the governor doesn't feel as strongly about the Confederacy as what he makes 10. I think the whole thing is that he just want to make sure that he doesn't piss off the segregationists or some of the Confederate veterans. I thought that was a good piece in Sunday's local paper in the Sun Herald. Confederate Memorial Day is not the right way for Mississippi to honor war heroes. You know, folks, we all, after the war, you bury your own dead. You know, there are over 7,000 African-American Union forces buried at Vicksburg. There are tens of thousands of Union buried there. Only three Confederates buried in that national cemetery. Primarily because it's a national cemetery. The Confederates would bury there, in many cases, would actually bring their bodies home. All right, folks, let's get to it. I'd like to cover a short period of time. What an incredibly controversial weekend. I don't want to hear anything about Conway. I'm sorry, Conway. Yeah, Conway. Kanye. I really don't. You know, folks. You know, at some point you realize just how truly insignificant some people make themselves, and you just, that's it. You go, that's to be expected. You know what I mean? I'm not playing at stuff. And for those of you who think, oh yeah, well, it's brilliant, yeah, it's all about the money. It's not. Let me just tell you, your dignity is never for sale. Sometimes you sit down, because there's some things more important than money or recognition. You know? And it's born for me out of my family. That is more important than that. So no, we're not, I mean, you can bring it up if you like, since it is the week, since it is Monday, but not a whole lot can be said. If you like it, you don't. Who cares? I think they said, mentioned it on the Breakfast Club this morning. Like, what? I mean, what do you guys do? I mean, you're seeing anything here, any kind of big brouhaha about this guy?
Yeah, just offhand comments about, trading Kanye, canceling Kanye. Kanye's irrelevant now. You know, just comments on what he's taking a stand for, not really what the stand he's taking, but just on him in general. There's been some hubbub about him, at least online.
You know what's interesting about this whole thing for me? Hearing actually conservatives now love Kanye and actually talk about quote-unquote Uncle Tom. You know, Amelia Cooper did a piece there, and I think it's on our Facebook page. You really owe it to yourself to see that her explanation of how Uncle Tom is a misnomer. It's not the right name. It was Sambo, as she explains, that turned in Uncle Tom, who actually was the revolutionary, should I say. But when you hear, it's amazing how you guys, you can hear actually conservatives now talk about, oh, the blacks, you don't like the blacks, as if somehow or another they do. I mean, and I'm coming out all critical. Oh, yeah. And some of you will even try to write me with that old silly crap. Oh, yeah, well. You know, Rip, no, you don't like black conservatives, blah, 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 blah. You don't get more conservatives than a man who grew up in Mississippi during Jim Crow. Let me tell you, every African-American family had to be conservative, real conservative. If anything, talk about being independent and self-sufficient, that's what should I say, conservatism is. But it just, you know, I guarantee you hear this, and you'll find that people like the Kanyes or the, what's the other guy, Chance the Rapper, get caught up into this, listening at what these guys say, and you identify yourself based upon whether they like you. And they'll like you as long as you stand up for their stuff. Sit down now and then see what happens. That's what this all goes back to. When you sit down because of your pride and your heritage, trust me, and I don't know why it is that any African American who's proud of his heritage insults the bigot. Well, I do know why. Because after all, your heritage can be more important than theirs, of course. Right. You can't be happy being Negro after all. But it just, you know, you hear that somebody send me some of these things talking about it, show me the Russian Limbaugh and all these folks. Oh, Conway's a threat, and Kanye is a threat. And the reality is they put forward what they think Negroes believe, and their minions believe that Negroes believe what they believe. What the Limbaught's and you guys end up developing this idea of Rip Daniels and others as being, oh yeah. Y'all believe that because Limbaugh said so, and you can't get no bigger bigot than this guy. Here's the reality. Nixon would not have been elected unless Negroes voted Republican. I'm just telling you. Thad Cochran would not have been elected unless Negroes voted Republican. Fofo Gillett would not have been elected if Negroes didn't vote Republican. It's not a Democrat and Republican thing with us. It's never been. It's about voting, period. Get over yourself. And stop believing that bullcrap you hear on Oxy Conservative Talk Radio. There's an agenda there. And the agenda is, obviously, for those of you who like that, it's designed to sidetrack you. You got me? It has nothing to do with truth. It's propaganda, folks. I'm just telling you that. NRA is not going to allow guns into their convention when Mike Pence is there. No guns allowed.
No guns allowed at the gun convention.
Yeah, talk about gun control there. How about that? There's some of you guys who into this sort of thing. Call me and tell me what you think about this. Some of you who've called and want to advocate about tyranny and all. So the NRA is saying no guns. Of course, the vice president's going to be there. You can't do that.
Can't do that.
The vice president's got to be safer than a 3 or 4 or 5-year-old in an elementary school in Sandy Hook.
Right, definitely.
I mean, I'm just saying. I mean, I thought that at least with NRA, the more guns there, the better.
I mean, he does.
He should feel a lot more safe.
He does have a personal army walking around with him everywhere he goes, but no guns. No guns.
You know, see, that's the Looney Tunes of this bunch. I mean, it's just really Looney Tunes. You go. But again, it's not about any kind of reasoning. It's more about whether you sit down, whether or not you don't revere what they revere. You got me? Whether or not you don't adhere to what they think you should. And let me just tell you, you guys who call yourselves conservatives, that litmus test is killing you guys. You can't. I mean, you got to have an F-150. You got to keep that bouffant thing going.
Got you on the right side, not the left side.
You can't listen to Rip Daniels, not in public anyway, and you certainly can't be seen with the guy in public. That's a trip. NRA is not allowing guns. Hang on, you guys. I'll be back.